Someone says, ask Null about Hot Wheels snitching to the cops right now. I don't know what that means.
Oh, I don't know. No, he wasn't snitching to the cops. He was he got media inquiries following the Dayton shooting, and he responded to them, and he basically said that 8chan isn't doing a good enough job of preventing murders, and it should be shut down.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why is it 8chan's job to prevent murders?
Well, we're gonna find out with Jim going to the congressional hearing.
Yeah, is he gonna appear?
Oh yeah, he's already replied saying he's going to appear.
Sweet deal. Is he gonna just
fly back to the
troll Congress? Like, what's he gonna do?
I don't know. There are many theories that I have regarding what's going to happen. Because on one hand, Jim is a hot-tempered person who, when I first arrived in the Philippines, my introduction to Jim was he didn't show up to something. And the reason why was because he had, like, the Philippines has the worst traffic in the world. Metropolitan Manila has the worst traffic, objectively, based on, like, facts and science and shit. The worst traffic in the entire world. And Jim got into he got road rage. He took a crowbar or a bat out of his car and bashed in a Filipino's windshield. And he was going through courts in regards to that when I first arrived. So on one hand, and I've seen him get mad personally, firsthand, when talking about Next. So on one hand, I see him as a very hot-tempered person. But on the other hand, I've seen his act in front of the camera. And his act is, he's just this cute little, Filipino pig farmer. And he doesn't know all that much about technology, but he runs a business, and he's just an honest man doing an honest day's work. So I want to be curious if we see Pig Farmer Jim or the violent psychotic Jim. And I don't know which one I want to see more.
You think he'd
come
on
one hand, I want him to succeed. On the other hand, I want to see Congress get called names.
You think he'd come on my show? I mean, I'm pretty much like Congress or whatever. I'm like a lawyer or whatever. Some of them are too.
Maybe. If you ask him about me, his opinion is going to be very negative.
Oh, he doesn't like you? That's too bad.
No, you don't know the story of that?
I don't know any of these stories, man. That's why I love talking to you. You know all of the stories.
When for a while I worked on writing replacement software for 8chan, and it did not work. I crowdfunded about $12,000 from the community, and I projected that it would be complete in about 6 months. I undershot it, and but in like the 5th month into development, Jim, who had recently required 8chan that year, heard about this project, and he wanted to talk to me about the software. Now, a big deal about the software was in the prior existing software, there was a lot of licensing issues. So the license I wanted to use is called AGPL, and AGPL is it's called like a herpes of licenses, because if it makes it so that if you run a website, you have to. Is it because
all the college kids have it?
No, it's because if you fork the code, you can't change the license. It's stuck at AGPL. It's contagious. Less restrictive licenses let you change it, so you can go from open source to closed source, for instance, which a lot of companies do. They'll take an open source project and add to it, and then close the source. AGPL doesn't allow that, and it's addition to the GPL license, in that if you take GPL code and run a web service with it, it doesn't count as distributing the code or a binary of the code, so you can close the source de facto with GPL through a web service. With AGPL,
real quick, this isn't Metokur we're talking about. Metokur wouldn't.
No,
Metokur.
There's 3 Jims. There's Jim Metokur Jim. There's Jim. The fuck is it? Watkins, and Watkins, he owns 8chan and 5chan, and then there's Jim Sterling, who's a big fat guy.
Yeah. So
Metokur, I'm talking about Jim Watkins.
I think Metokur technology is at a level barely above me, right? Like, isn't that the? So I don't know if he'd be able to. Maybe he does. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But everybody calls him a boomer, so I assume he's just as terrible as I am.
In general, the code was supposed to be open source. That was a pitch. I crowdfunded thousands of dollars off the pitch that it would be AGPL. About 5 months in, late into the project, Jim wants to talk to me. So we meet up at a coffee shop, and he says, "Look, I'll pay you $2,000 a month. I'll pay your rent. I'll move you to Makati, which is the nicer area in Manila, and I'll pay for all your stuff, and I'll give you a wage, and you'll work for us. But you have to give me the code, all of it, and it's mine." I said, I can't do that. I legally can't do that. I don't think I can just sell a product under a license and then change it. And Frederick backed me up at the time and said AGPL is a good license, and Watkins had concerns that the code would be less secure if it was public because people could look for exploits and stuff, and that's not true. Right, open source code is more secure because people peer review it.
Right.
So we told him, and he said, "Well, okay, this is a waste of time." And he just stood up and walked the fuck out in the middle of this, and like in minutes. And I laughed, and I said to Frederick, I said, "I have negative charisma. I'm the only one who can walk into a meeting with someone having thousands of dollars a month lined up for him and walk away with literally nothing in a matter of minutes." Like I hadn't finished my coffee. He left behind a half-finished coffee when he left. And yeah. So he doesn't have a high opinion, especially because afterwards, I was pretty pissy with them because, as far as I'm concerned, that sabotaged the project because a lot of the mistakes made were made with the fact that I ran into money issues. I was in a foreign country and I was running out of money because people stopped donating as the project went over the projected development time. And it's like, if I had $2,000 a month to bankroll this, I would have easily been able to take my time, take a year if it required a year and get it done. And so I was pretty nasty with Jim. And I made some statements that still get posted around in like giant montage image to this day, saying that he should abandon his company to his son, Ron, who's the current maintainer of 8chan, and go back to farming pigs because he's not good at running companies.
Yeah, so he's probably a big fan of yours then.
Well, that's why I'm curious to see his congressional appearance, because it's either going to be a fucking disaster or he's going to look like the innocent pig farmer, and it'll completely blow their the air out of their sails.
I want someone. I know it's got to be hard to do it, but I really want someone to sit up there, and while some congressman is making a big stand about mass shootings and blah blah, he'd say, "Wait, I'm sorry, but I didn't think it was my job to prevent mass shootings. I thought it was your job." Like, that's what I want someone to say to Congress, right? Like, it's not my job.
Isn't this why I co-signed all my rights away with the Patriot Act, and now I have no privacy expectations whatsoever? Isn't that why I pay you 30% of my income every single year? Every dollar I make is cut in thirds to give to you to fund your wars, so you can make me safer.
Right, and it's literally the only legitimate purpose of government is to protect from enemies, foreign and domestic. Like that is the quintessential purpose of every government. The idea that the reason we all subscribe to government across the world is because we have this idea that government will at some way. We all choose different ways to do it, but in some way, government will protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic, and that is the number one selling point of gathering together and surrendering some portion of our rights to some overarching, all-powerful entity that will lord over us for the rest of ours and every generation that follows lives.